Hey, Who fans, and welcome to the Big Blue Box podcast. My name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And we're episode 130.
130.
One day, I shall come back.
Oh dear, we are in trouble, aren't we?
I've reversed the polarity of the neutron flow, so the TARDIS should be free of the force field now.
I have the advantage of being slightly ahead of you. Sometimes behind you, but normally ahead of you.
The trouble with time travel is, one never seems to find the time.
Change, my dear, and it seems not a moment too soon.
Unlimited rice pudding, etc., etc.
A meteor storm, and the sky above us was dancing with lights. Purple, green, brilliant yellow, yes!
I'm the doctor, by the way. What's your name?
Rose.
Nice to meet you, Rose.
Run for your life.
It's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
Just remember who's standing in your way.
Look at the eyebrows. These are attack eyebrows. You can take bottle tops off with these.
Howdy do, Who fans. We hope you've had a cracking week and that you've managed to get on to something Doctor Who. TV, Big Finish, or a good old-fashioned book.
Books. What are those?
What are those things? Oh, those things with pages. Lots of words in. Oh, yeah.
I love a good book.
We do. We love a good book that sits on the shelf, if I put it that way.
Yes.
Shelf decoration. So coming up in today's show, we have not much news. A little bit of merch, though.
Yeah, I'm quite excited about a certain bit in the merch news when we get to it.
Yeah. And then on to our review of the Dominators. You will.
The Dominators.
Yes. Silence.
We should be wearing those big hunchback outfits, shouldn't we, while we're doing this?
Yeah.
We haven't made the effort this morning.
Yeah. That's going to be an interesting one to talk to.
Weirdly, we've both got the Doctor Who calendar where you rip off the page each day. I don't know what do you call that sort of calendar?
I think they're just called desk calendars or desktop.
Desk calendars.
Yeah.
So every day you rip it off to reveal the next date. And have you done yours today?
Yes.
Because I was quite freaked out because I ripped off the page and lo and behold, today's one is the Dominators. I was like, wow, that's a coincidence, isn't it?
Coincidence, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, which is very cool.
It was the Yetis at the weekend, if I remember.
That's right, it was Yetis at the weekend. But yeah, I was just a bit like sort of tore off. So I was like, oh wow, Dominators. It was a bit of a what's that in the Android Invasion, where the Doctor goes into the pub and he rips off the date, and I think isn't it like the same date every day or something?
Oh yeah.
When he realises that it's all fake. Yeah. Sort of had a bit of a moment like that of oh my god, freak out. So yes, Dominators is everywhere today. It's on the pod. It's on the calendar.
Yes,
it's everywhere. Quarks are everywhere.
Quarks, the walking travel suitcases.
I can't get that out of my head. I literally, the whole time I was watching this last night, I just kept thinking of that. I just kept waiting for him to, take the handle out and wheel him away. Yeah. I was watching it with production subtitles as well, and there's a bit where one of them falls over just out of shot. It walks through a door, and it says if you listen, you can just hear a clunk or smash. Yeah. And I was thinking of it then, just imagine it being picked up and wheeled away. The lovely Quarks.
The Quarks.
Did you notice my little quark on my Facebook post this week for the episode? Yes. Yeah. It took me ages to find him. I was like, right, because I always put the picture up saying we're doing this week, we're doing blah blah DVD cover standard. I was like, I must find my little quark to put in the picture. I'm sure he's around somewhere. God, blimey, it took me ages to find that little guy.
Well, it would in your.
It would. I was going through all the blimmin', what are they called, Eagle Moss figures. I was like, the Fisher King, no. Second Doctor, no. Yeah. It's just like Quark. Finally found him.
I can just imagine a scene where, we can't see you, but we can just see like a huge cupboard door open, and there's like various things being thrown out. Loads of just various Doctor Who merchandise being thrown out all over the place, and then like, I've got him.
That's it. It's exactly what it was like. Yeah, Titans all over the floor. Yeah, boxes everywhere. I was like, because I thought I knew where he was. It's that thing, isn't it? You always think you know where you think you roughly know where these things might be. I just couldn't get him, but I did get him. Talking of that, I saw you had a bit of a tidy up on your shelf, didn't you? The weekend. Saw you post a few pics.
Yep, my bi-monthly dusting and sort out. Yes.
Yeah, it looks good with your pops, and you've got a few Titans as well, haven't you?
Yeah, a few Titans on there. It was mainly just making room for stuff that's going to be coming up, I think. So my Big Finish CDs, they were sort of stacked vertically, and they were I was going up, so they were touching like the underside of the shelf above. And the pops were like going full width across the shelf, but then it sort of obscured the other stuff behind it. So just had to have a bit of a Who shuffle. And so I got rid of a load of stuff though. So on the bottom part of that bookshelf, I've just got loads of other books, like movie books and all sorts of stuff.
They can go.
So I took about 20 books, I suppose, to the charity shop, freed up a load of space. So now I've got an additional shelf just for Who. So I've got like books and like a Big Finish. And so just when I expand, there's a tiny little space there.
Space is always a problem, isn't it? I love the fact that somebody noticed that I've in my photo that I was just talking about, the Dominators picture that I posted, somebody spotted that I've left a gap for Doom Coalition 4. And I was like, wow, very eagle-eyed listeners we've got, because I've already got a little gap ready for it, because that comes out next month, I think.
Is it March?
It's soon.
It is March.
Is it March?
Or
yeah,
April.
it's quite soon. So I thought, get that gap ready, just like you, clearing out a load of stuff and getting ready for it. Bit of a clear up. Talking of not making the effort, by the way, in terms of costume, you did also post some pictures of some of the cosplay Gallifrey 1, and OMG, some of the cosplay. It was Gallifrey 1, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, if any of you guys who went are listening, I'm blown away by the cosplay that I saw on Facebook. Absolutely blown away. And the one that you posted was Alpha Centauri, wasn't it? Which was brilliant.
It looked really good, didn't it?
Absolutely good. The winner for me, though, if I was handing out prizes, I don't know if you saw this one, but you probably did, was, oh gosh, what are they called? What are the three doctors, the big brown blobs with the claws and the one eye, blah, 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 blah. What are they called?
The three doctors.
Yeah, the three doctors. They look like they're made of they look like a giant toffee crisp walking towards you with a claw. Well, somebody was dressed as the listeners know what I'm on about. Somebody was dressed as one of them, and they just, the costume was incredible.
Oh yes, yeah, yes,
yeah. You know the things I mean.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll tell you what, the time and effort some people put into the cosplay, it's weird because our US friends seem to have, well, not just US, but it just seems like the UK is a bit more reserved where it concerns cosplay.
Well, I think they've gone the extra mile, because I think we're getting much more into cosplay over here, which is great. But it does tend to be mostly doctors and assistants. Whereas they've gone the extra mile over there, haven't they? They've really gone for it. They've done, like I said, the Alpha Centauri, whatever the blob things are called. There'll be people screaming at us now, telling us what they're called. You guys know what I'm on about. From the Three Doctors and who else was there? There was loads of great cosplay, and I just, like you said, they've really, really gone for it.
They have, and that's what I was going to say. At the majority of events here, we do tend to just stick to the Doctor's outfits or the Companions' outfits, and that's a lot. I think the best one that I've seen was at the festival. Was that last year or the year before? The Doctor Who festival, and there was a wee lad that had a full-on proper Davros chair around his wheelchair.
Yeah.
And he looked amazing, and that was awesome. But you do see, like, a lot of events over in, especially the US, they do tend to really get into it more, don't they? So they tend to dress up as a lot of the monsters from Who as well. And they also dress up as the TARDIS and also lots of other things. So it does it very cool. We're going to have to go to Gallifrey 1.
Oh, I'd love to. I'd absolutely love to. It always seems to me, and I don't know because obviously we've never been, but it's, whenever I see photos from US conventions, especially Gallifrey 1, it does seem much more relaxed in terms of the celebrities that appear there. So, for example, when we go to UK convention, let's take, like the London Film Comic Con, for example. So last year, Missy was there, Michelle Gomez. You get to meet her, but it's so brief. It's like autograph, move on. You don't get to chat to them. I wasn't even allowed to take a photo of her while I was in the queue, just of her, just there. I wasn't, someone was like, come up and said, no photos, none of that. And that's what UK conventions are like. It's very strict and almost sort of takes the joy out of a lot of it in terms of that. So there's no selfies at the tables, haven't got time for that, haven't got time for chat. It's just get your autograph and move along very often. Not always, but that, tends to be the way.
Yeah.
When I see pictures of US conventions, and as I say, I'm only going by what I've seen, so do correct me if I'm wrong here, but I see pictures of like people just with stood with Michelle Gomez having a photo in front of the chairs, and as if she's just walked past and, can I get a picture? Yeah, sure, and I see that all the time. Like I saw people having pictures with Michael Troughton, and they're not even at the table. They always just seem to be as if they're just, when they finish signing, as if they just walk round, meet the fans, have pictures. And as I said, I don't really have anything to base this on other than what I've seen on Facebook and people's photos. But that is definitely the impression I get, that it's a bit more relaxed out there.
Absolutely.
As I said, I would love it if we've got some listeners that have attended Gallifrey 1 or attended a US convention. I'd love to know if I'm right, because that's certainly the impression we get over here. It just seems so much more chilled. There's none of this regimental stuff that we have in the UK, where you do get to meet them. But I mean, I think even when we went to London Film Comic Con last year, we met Paul McGann, absolutely lovely bloke, and he was great to chat to, and he was very engaging. But because there was a queue and stuff, you did get the impression it's more the people that are with them. I think in the UK, they sort of hurry you along, don't they? They're sort of they do the sort of dirty work for them, if you like. They're sort of like, okay, sorry guys, got to keep it. So I always just feel like it's a bit pressured over here in the UK. That's why I'd love to go to a US convention for the cosplay and just to experience what it's like over there.
We'll make it happen.
Yeah, it's got to happen.
We'll do it. There's another one. Somebody popped up on Twitter and said, "Oh, you should come to." Which one was it? I think it was in Chicago. I think it's called. Yeah. There's it's gone out of my head what that one's called, but that's a sizable Doctor Who one as well in Chicago. We should look at that as well. But there was another pic that somebody put on. Oh, it was Adam the Whovian on Twitter put on a pic of Sutek and the Mummies.
Oh, yes.
And that looks spot on.
Amazing.
Like literally pretty much screen accurate, bang on cosplay.
Yeah.
It's so good. Yeah.
The creature I was trying to think of, by the way, I have Googled it while we've been chatting. It is, of course, the Gelgard.
Oh,
yeah, type in the Three Doctors Gelgard, Gary, and just look at it. It is so... Yeah, but the cosplay for it was absolutely spot on. It was so good. God knows what they made it out of.
They look like
probably
walking...
a toffee crisp.
They look like walking boils, don't they? They're just like orangey brownie.
Got this one claw as well, haven't they?
Yeah.
One big sort of like snappy claw. Yeah. The Gelgard. That's it. Couldn't think what they were. Talking to conventions though, keeping our eye on conventions. We often moan about that we don't get any of the new series people over here as well. It's another frustrating thing in the UK is that a lot of the new series guys only do US conventions. But we are starting to get a little taste of the new series over here, because John Barrowman's doing a couple, and there's been a lot of reaction to the fact that Billie Piper was announced for a couple of UK conventions only a couple of days ago, although it'll probably be a week by the time this goes out. But yeah, she's just been announced for MCM Birmingham and Liverpool, I think. I think I'm right in saying that. But yeah, she's definitely been announced for a couple. And yeah, people have gone mad over it, understandably. And it's great to see her doing that because, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think she's done a UK convention for quite a while, has she?
I don't think so. No, not in... Well... No, it's been a while since she's done a UK one, for sure.
Yeah. So it's really great to see, a few new series people doing some UK stuff over here. Mm-hmm. Hopefully it'll be the start of more doing it. I'd love to see Matt and David do it. We said that a few times. But yeah, it's good to see some new series people doing it. Because Billy's been in that, what's that play that I can't pronounce? Yerma, something like that.
Something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. And she's been in that for a while, and she's coming back to do it again. And I know a lot of people met her at the stage door. The first time round. She's very, very nice, I have to say. I was lucky enough to meet her at the stage door. Very, very nice. So yeah, good to see Billy coming over to do a bit.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So yeah. I don't know if I'll get to any of those though. I've never been to an MCM convention, have you?
I've been to one, the London one. That was going back a few years now though.
Okay. Is it very similar to the Showmaster stuff, or is it?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Same affair. It's loads of guests signing stuff, and then they've got stalls and pick up your collectibles and overpriced posters and T-shirts and stuff. It's pretty much the same thing. Yep.
Yeah. I must admit, I haven't looked to see how much Billy's auto and photo is yet. In fact, I don't know if they've even announced it yet, because that is the only thing, isn't it? It's all good getting these people, as long as the prices aren't silly. Because I did have a bit of a moan about Barrowman charging 45 for an autograph and 55 for a photo the other week. I thought that was a little bit steep. Yes. I've got a feeling Billy might be the same. I don't know.
Probably.
She'll probably be up there, won't she?
She's billed as they're not announced yet, but she will be up there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Daphne Ashbrook's there as well.
Yes, she is. Yeah, Daphne.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's going to be there as well. Yeah. Be great if Paul was announced, wouldn't it? I'd love to get a picture with Paul and Daphne together. That'd be fantastic.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The two of them.
Yeah. Talking of conventions further, you told me, I think last week, that Peter Davison was going to be at the Westminster. Is it Film Fair? London Film Fair?
That's it. Yeah.
And I'm so gutted that I can't make that one because I'm not going to be here. But I did find a cool little convention down in Surrey somewhere later on in the year.
Oh, right.
And that is called something. That is called something. And it's in Epsom in Surrey. And it's got, I think it's got Colin Baker, Peter Davison, Sylvester McCoy, somebody else, and a few other people. It's called Who at the Playhouse.
Oh, right.
At the Epsom Playhouse. And it's I think it's in October or November. I think it's October. I'd never heard of this one before, but apparently it's been going for a little while.
Oh, right.
So that's potentially a book up that one. So that's so Colin Baker, Peter Davison, John Leeson, and a load of other people. October, 1st of October.
Get it in your diary, Gary, because your little face dropped something when we finished recording it. Because for anyone that listened to last week's podcast, Gary got very excited when I told him about this Westminster thing, and then we carried on talking about it after we finished recording, and he suddenly, his face dropped, and I went, "What's the matter?" And you realised that you can't go, didn't you? You were like, "Oh no!" Like the date suddenly like an alarm went ding, like, "Oh no, it's on that weekend." Oh, for goodness sake! You were really gutted. So yeah, it's good that you found another one.
It was a bit like watching Adric's death scene in Earthshock, where you can tell it's about to explode onto the surface of the planet, and his little face is just drops. Just drops. Yeah, he's like, "Oh, I guess I'll never figure out the answer after all," or something. It was like that. It was like, "Oh, I guess I might be."
Look genuinely gutted. Yeah.
So I am gutted. The only reason is because I really want to meet Davison. I have yet to meet him because he's not as active on the convention scene in the UK, especially in London. He sort of shies away from the big London ones and stuff. So you
seem to, doesn't he? Yeah.
So you have to catch him at these smaller ones when he's there. So, but I think this one, it's called Who's at the Playhouse, at the Epsom Playhouse in Surrey. So that might be a cool one to get along to.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? I wonder what the reason is for that. Like he hasn't done a Showmasters one for ages, Peter Davison. I mean, I met him one in Milton Keynes, years ago. And I haven't seen him do one of those for ages. It just makes me wonder how can a really small convention like London, well, not small, but small in compared to Showmasters, I mean, how can they get him, but London Film Comic Con can't? Or is it a case that he doesn't want to do them? Or is it a case that they haven't asked him? You know, I'm just really intrigued. Like, you know, I'm not belittling Westminster Film Fair, by the way, but, you know, they are, compared to London Film Comic Con, they're very small and intimate. So it just intrigues me how these things work. Like, you know,
I think with the older guys, the classic Who guys, I think it's more down to whether they want to do it or not, because they're probably not charging as much as like somebody like Billy Piper or David Tennant would. But I know that because Davison, he is doing a load of conventions this year, lots of them, and the only one that he's doing in London is the one that we mentioned, the London Film Con in Westminster.
Yeah.
All the others There's one Cleethorpes. There's the City Hall Salisbury. There's York and Ryton on Dunsmore, and that's it. And then he's doing a bunch of American ones. Oh, the one we didn't know the name of earlier was Chicago TARDIS.
Oh yeah, that's it.
And Davison's actually going to be at that one. So I think it's just he doesn't like going to the really big London ones because Chicago TARDIS, by the way, Davison, Baker, and McCoy.
Oh, superb!
Oh, nice one. So yeah, I think I don't know if you've got to this bit in his book yet, where he talks about conventions. There's a whole chapter about conventions.
Not yet.
Have you got to that? Okay, I won't say anything. But
okay,
there's quite a cool little list actually that he says he's got 10 things that he really likes about conventions and 10 things that he doesn't.
Oh, great! Cool. I haven't got to that yet.
Yeah, and I think if once you've read the 10 things that he doesn't like, that will probably explain why he doesn't do the really big, busy ones in London.
Interesting.
Anyway.
Okay,
yes.
You can say if you want. I don't mind if you want to. I'm up for spoilers because the listeners will be.
Well, I won't spoil it too much, but one of the things I'll have to remember now. But one of the things that he doesn't like, and this is a bit controversial, is that he doesn't like people in Tom Baker scarves.
Oh my God! Because I often wear my Tom Baker scarf as well.
He doesn't. He's not a fan of that.
Oh, really?
And, because once you read through that whole area of the book around conventions, let's just say that there was quite a bit of animosity between him and Tom. Him, some of the other doctors, and Tom Baker.
Right.
Let's just say that Tom Baker was never viewed fondly by the other actors at conventions.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So, he's not a fan when people rush up, which is a real shame for him because the majority of Doctor Who cosplayers they've got the scarf and they've got, the hat. So, yes.
So many, I was just thinking every convention we go to, so many people wear me included. I often think, what can because I don't really go the full hog on cosplay, but I'm like, what can I wear that, lets people know that I'm a Doctor Who fan? And it's the scarf, isn't it? It's like, oh yeah, good old Fourth Doctor scarf. Come on.
Yeah.
So that's good to know. I'm just trying to think if I had it on last time I met him. I don't think I did actually, or did I? You're making me think now. I don't think I did, but I might have done because I do often just wear it. Yeah. So Davison,
Oh, Davison, yes.
He's a lad. He's probably doing more because he's probably been going around the country buying up all his autobiographies from the workshop for £6. Every time I go in there, I'm like, they've got his book now. So he's probably got a few copies of that he needs to get flogged and signed. And Colin Baker is always at every single convention. Can you imagine his calendar on his wall? It must just have like every single day must have something on it.
Hey, Colin.
Yeah, Colin. Yeah.
Yeah, he's all over the place, isn't he?
You probably can't read it. He's probably got about 3 dates on each day or something. Yeah, he's at everything, Colin. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a busy man.
He is. For those of you that don't know about this website, it's really good. It's updated regularly. There's a website that gives you the lowdown on all the appearances from actors from Who. And what conventions they're at. So if you go to doctorwhoappearances.blogspot.co.uk, you'll be able to see where all the actors are going to be. And Colin's list is huge.
Yeah.
So if you're after, and they've got Billy Piper on there, it's got basically a bunch of actors who are on the convention scene, and they will tell you where they are going to be. Samuel Anderson, old Danny Pink.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Gingster Pie Convention.
He's only doing one this year, which is the German Comic-Con in Munich. And that's your lot from old Danny.
That's your lot.
Maybe because, people might ask him, so when you were doing your scenes with Clara, had you just woken up? Or is this hangover? Is it the morning after, the night before? Or is it you just, anyway. Yeah. We love a good convention.
We do, and that is a good site, actually. I must echo that. I go on there quite a lot. It's really good because I don't know about you, but I tend to check the same sites now and again. Like, I'll always look at Showmasters, see who's been added to that. And then every now and again, I think, I'll check that actors' appearances one because it lists everything. So sometimes there's conventions like that one you mentioned just now which I've never heard of, so I wouldn't think to sort of find it, if you know what I mean. So yeah, it's a really good site, that one, for finding out who's at what.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. There's a Tortured one I didn't know about. Just before we move on.
Oh, is that Heathrow? Is that one of the?
Yeah.
Where is it? Is it?
It's called Miracle Day.
That's it, Miracle Day. I saw that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's at Heathrow.
Oh, it is Heathrow. Yeah.
Yep. Eve Miles, Gareth Lloyd. Faddy's there from Class, strangely enough.
Is he?
Yeah.
What's he doing there?
Don't know. But yeah, that might be cool if Barrowman was there. But...
Yeah, so I think if you're going to have a Torture convention, really, you got to have Barrowman, haven't you?
Yeah.
I've not met that many of the Tortured guys, actually. I've met Barrowman once. I've met... No, just Barrowman, is it? I thought I'd met somebody else. I've not met many of the Tortured guys. I'd like to. I'd like to meet Byrne. I'd love to meet Eve Miles, because I think she often, forgive me for saying this, because it might just be that she's very bubbly, but she often appears a little drunk. Or I think, let's put it this way, I think her and the other guys get on very well, so they're often very bubbly at conventions. So I'd like to meet her. Yeah.
Yes. Nothing will top the bubbliness that I saw the night before Day of the Doctors, though, over in Slough, mate. That was, just very quickly, for those that don't know, I was in the Chinese restaurant at the Copthorne, is it, in Slough, the night before the Day of the Doctors event, which is run by
10th Planet.
10th Planet, that's the one. And there was a guy that starred in Genesis of the Daleks. There was another guy that was in Pyramids of Mars. There's about 4 of them, classic guys, and I can't remember the names of them. And they went through like 3 bottles of wine, 9 or 10 pints, another bottle of wine, and they were complete. They were gone.
Yeah.
And they looked green the next day. They really did.
Yeah, those are the classic guys, you see. They're from the days when they had the BBC bar.
Exactly.
So they're hardcore. They can handle it.
Yeah. You been up to much else, buddy?
No, I haven't, mate. No, it's been all work and no play with me. Unfortunately, I haven't been up to much else at all. No. What about you? Have you been up to much?
No, not really. I did get a bunch of viewing in. Obviously, the Dominators. I watched... Turn Left and Stolen Earth, because that was on the W channel, Watch.
Oh, yeah.
That was quite cool when you're just flicking through, like, oh, Doctor Who's on. I watched the TV movie as well, and I watched that on, I think it was Friday or Saturday night, because my wife had picked a film, which was the latest Ghostbusters movie, because she really likes that. So she was like, let's watch that. I was like, okay, well, I can pick one afterwards. And she was like, okay. So when it came to me, I was like, right, we're going to watch the TV movie. And, mate, she lasted about 18 minutes.
Oh.
And she was gone.
Oh, really?
She was gone, mate, yeah. And I think...
no. Yeah, McGann's not even in it by that point, is he?
No, she was like... Oh. And I'm sure that people listening who have gone through this with friends or people who have watched it sound very familiar. But she said, why is it sort of old school Americanized? It feels like it was out when the Next Generation, that era of like really bad, cheesy American TV. I said, well, it was made by an American company. I said it was, this was their attempt to sort of get it out into the Whoniverse so that they could springboard off of that into a new series. And she was like, but it's not Doctor Who though, is it? And I said, well, it is Doctor Who, because it's canon. It's all official. Don't worry, it's all there. She's like, no, this doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel right at all. And it just gave her a really, really creeped out feeling, because she was so used to, basically anything that's not the TV movie, that's not Americanized. But she was like, but it just doesn't work. This doesn't feel like Doctor Who. It doesn't work at all.
It definitely does. I mean, it does have a different feel to it.
Yes. And I said, look, I know it's different, but you just have to sort of go with it. It does, it does get better. And Paul McGann is amazing as the Doctor. So just wait. And she was like, So I think she sat down for another couple of minutes, and then she was like, no, I can't do it. This doesn't. She said, it feels like I need to go and have a shower. I need to go and have a bath, because I feel like my experience of watching Doctor Who thus far has now been tainted. You know, and she really had a problem with it, mate. So I watched it. So she was like, I'm going. I was like, okay, bye. So I watched it. And that was it. But I also did a live stream as well last week. That was cool to do. That was great fun.
Yeah.
So if you look out on Facebook or Twitter, whatever, I'll stick out when we're doing it next time. And that's something else that we're going to have to sort out to do together is the live stream.
I love doing the live streams. They're good, really good fun. Yeah, I love chatting to our listeners, and while we're doing it, it's really good to be a bit more interactive. Yeah,
it was great fun. So thank you for those of you that jumped on that. And I watched through Rose because it was Chris Eccleston's birthday.
That's right. Yeah, so, I was trying to think which episode it was.
Yeah.
Why is the TV movie so divisive? You know, I never realised that so many people were, because I was with Matt and Liv from the Who Addicts the other week. They I was going to say they hate it. Liv hates it, and I think Matthew thinks it's okay. I might be wrong. I don't think he hates it like Liv does, but I've always really liked it. Or at least there are a lot of bits in there that I like, if that makes sense. I love like Sylve's costume in it. I love the beginning, how it's so easy. He's in the console, and I love the TARDIS sets, and there's so much in the movie that I really, really like. So I'm always a bit surprised when someone gets a reaction like your wife or
they
just don't. It's not part of the Whooniverse. They don't consider it part of Doctor Who. I find it really strange because I think not strange, but it's like I don't get that. I get why there are bits that people don't like, but I think there's some really good stuff in the movie. Overall, I really like it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say that it's Who's finest hour. Let's not go that far, but I really like it. It's I think
we've reviewed it, haven't we? Yeah.
I think you just have to appreciate it for what it was at the time. I don't if you try and sort of make it more than what it is, it's just it literally is that. It's a TV movie. It's not a huge production thing that they put out in the cinema and everything. It's just a straight to TV thing. It was never going to set the world on fire, but there are, like you say, there are some great stuff to like in there.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So I mean, Paul McGann, as we know, is absolutely brilliant, and he's gone Superb. On, to be even better in Big Finish and so on. But there are some cool stuff like the TARDIS is beautifully designed, the console, and it's I don't know, it's McCoy's actually pretty good.
McCoy's good. I was going to say, even Eric Roberts, even though he's being way over the top, I kind of like it in a sort of camp, enjoyable way. I don't know, even that he's so over the top in it, but I quite enjoy it. I'm just looking back to see, because we did review it way back in episode 47. Wow. I seem to remember we both were really favourable about it, so if anyone wants to hear that, episode 47. And then we interviewed Daphne. Why do we always say Daphne Ashbrook? Not long after, I think, because I seem to remember we were both saying, we really liked it, and so
we gave it a 7 and an 8 at the time.
So were you the 7?
Yes.
Yeah,
which I think is a reasonable score for the movie. But the thing is, though, I do understand why people sort of shy away from it and the reasons why they're not a fan of it. But the missus, no, she went right the other way. She was like, I'm not having this. This is not Doctor Who.
I wish you'd stayed to in a bit McGann, though. Although it takes him a while to actually get. He spends a lot of time walking around the hospital and shouting to the air and all that before he actually sort of There's a bit of regeneration stuff going on for a bit, isn't there?
Yes, it does take a bit.
So it would have been good if she'd have come back after about 45 minutes, maybe, when he's in his costume in the TARDIS and all that. Yeah.
And it's sort of, and it does end in a way that you do feel like you want to watch more McGann on TV as well, because that final scene where he says goodbye to Grace and they go their separate ways, and you kind of think, well, this is good. This would be a good. You can see where they were going with it, where they wanted to do another series. With McGann, and you do. For me anyway, I do finish watching the TV movie and think, I would really love to have seen what they would have done with him as the Doctor. I know Big Finish has sort of filled the gap a little bit, but it would have been good to see some more TV McGann.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, because I love that end scene where he's like, come with me. And she's like, no, you come with me. And he's like, me come with you. And you can see that there's a good chemistry between the two of them.
Yeah.
And or even the three of them, if you like. But I definitely would. I think it would have been very much like the TV movie in that there would have been, if they'd done a full series, there'd have been, I think, some really cool sort of stuff that in there, but it probably wouldn't have worked overall. Do you know what I mean? I think it would have just, that's how I imagined it. I imagined that I would like it, but I wouldn't consider it Doctor Who's best sort of thing.
No, it's not.
That's how I imagined it would have gone. But I would have been interested. I mean, I always think it, even when Doctor Who's not on top form, there's always stuff in there to enjoy. As we'll find out possibly later when we review the Dominators, there's always stuff, even if a Doctor Who story is not always the best or regarded as the best, there's generally something in there to enjoy, isn't there? So
yeah, there is.
But we'll never know. We'll never know how that would have gone.
Oh well.
Yeah, but I do think I reckon Paul would have. He wanted his Doctor to be like Eccleston's, didn't he? I reckon he might have got his way. I think he'd have said, I'll do the series, but the wig's coming off and the costume's being toned down and then we can do it.
I love that. The wig's coming off.
Yeah. I never realised that was a wig for years because obviously I was quite young when the movie went out. I didn't realise he was wearing that wig because he shaved his head pretty much, didn't he? And the producer was like, oh my God, what have you done?
That's right. That's in the special features, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've done a little mini review of the TV movie there.
There you go. If you haven't seen it in a while because you hated it, just give it a sneaky watch. You might.
I really want to know why Liv hates it so much because, I should have. I'll have to. If you're listening, Liv, I think Liv does listen every week, actually. We'll have to have a chat sometime. Perhaps me and Liv and Gary and your wife, we can all sit down over a pint and discuss the TV movie. Imagine it turning into a ruckus by about the fifth pint. McGann is a doctor. All kicking off, bottles flying. Yeah.
The TV. Right, let's crack on. Otherwise, we're going to get into a full-blown review of McGann and everything. We haven't got any news.
We haven't.
It is quite light.
Nothing at all.
Nothing at all. But we have got a couple of wee bits of merch. Shall we get the Daleks in?
Get them in.
Merch corner. Merch corner. Merch corner. I don't know whether to be impressed or disgusted.
It's a bit rubbish, but it's pretty. It's very pretty.
Spin-offs. Doctor Who spin-offs. Those of you that are a fan of spin-off shows, we've spoken about a few of them briefly before. Mainly the Brigadier. What's the Lethbridge Stewart spin-off that was quite popular? It's been out for a while now.
Lethbridge Stewart.
Is it Lethbridge Stewart that's in it? Or am I wrong there? There's a spin-off that's been out for a while, a few years now, or even longer.
Downtime?
Downtime. The Brigadier's in that, isn't he?
Yeah,
he is. Yeah,
they did. Yeah, he's in one of them, I think. I don't know if that's what you're referring to. Yeah.
Yes, and we've also spoken about the commentaries that they've sold to go along with various official Doctor Who programs. So there is a little community around spin-offs, and there was one that was this the very first spin-off?
Yes, I think so. This is when Doctor Who, I assume, had gone off the air. I don't know when this originally came out, but when Doctor Who was off air, these little nuggets, if you like, appeared now and again. So we had like Downtime. What's that one with Ace in it? Mind Game, I think it's called. And things like that. So they were connected to Doctor Who, but obviously they couldn't really use. Or they couldn't always use like the characters' real names. Sometimes they could, sometimes they couldn't because of copyright. So sometimes they had to get around it in cleverly written ways. I think Ace is called the Human in Mind Game. They sort of get around it like that and stuff. So all these little sort of, I wouldn't call them, would you call them unofficial spin-offs or
independent
fan-made spin-off? Independent spin-offs.
Yes.
Sort of appeared in the 90s, I guess. It would have been, would it? Yeah.
I would say so, the early 90s, mid-90s. But the first one that we know of anyway was called The Wartime Chronicles. And this was starring your best friend, John Levine,
yes,
reprising his role as Sergeant Benton.
I'm doing that to him, by the way, not to you.
And yes, and this has been re-released.
Yeah,
as a sort of collector's edition, a 2-disc collector's edition, no less. And it's the story roughly is Sergeant Benton is doing a delivery run apparently for the brig, and he finds himself near his childhood home, where ghosts from his past have never rested easily. So he's trapped in a nightmare world where past and present seem as one. But will he make his way back to reality where he is desperately needed? So it is definitely a Sergeant Benton story. And you would be fooled in thinking that it's independent of Doctor Who, because it doesn't have any branding for Doctor Who. All it does is mention, just very briefly, from the world of BBC TV's Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And that's your lot. But they have managed to use his name, though. His character name, which is good. We have a trailer. Yes, we do. I'm going to play it right now.
Trouble, sir?
If there was going to be trouble, Willis, this is a spot I'd choose.
No bloody cop, remember!
You're dead. You died years ago.
It's a game. And it's not over yet.
There you are.
Wow. There you go.
Yes. Wartime, starring John Levine. Now, I can't say that I'm hugely excited for this one. If you can imagine today, in today's world, if you went out into the forest and just had a bit of a lark around filming stuff on your iPhone, this would roughly be what the result of that, it's that kind of thing. It's, but
I'm surprised to see it getting a reissue so soon, because this came out, I'm pretty sure it was last year. I'm sure it was last year, because I have got it. When I saw this, being on our news sheet for today, I was like, really? Is that coming out again? So I quickly went upstairs to check, and yeah, it is the same thing. So I have got it. I have watched it. Don't really remember a lot about it. And I'll be honest with you, from what I do remember, it wasn't great. It was a easy enough watch. But does it warrant a special edition DVD so soon? I don't know. I mean, to be honest with you, the only thing that does intrigue me about this is that it says it includes a wartime reunited. So presumably they're going to get all the characters back together. Although this did star Michael Wisher, Davros himself, who's of course no longer with us, so that's a shame. But yeah, so it's quite interesting from that point of view, because you get to see Michael Wisher, as he is in human form. It's got John Pertwee live on stage, it says, as an extra, which wasn't on the original, and it's got an introduction by Katie Manning, which I don't think's on the original. So there's maybe a couple of little bits on the new extras worth getting, but I don't remember it being a particularly good story, if you like. And the acting in it was bit
go on, don't dress it up, go on.
No, I just don't remember being particularly impressed with it, but then again, like I said, I suppose it's the first spin-off, so yeah. But I don't know, I probably won't pick it up again myself, but if you haven't already got it, maybe get it. I should imagine it's not particularly expensive, is it?
It's $14.99.
Oh, I was thinking it'd be $9.99.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's released on the 6th of March. If you want to pre-order it, you can pre-order it from Amazon. Yeah, it's got a full-on, proper, legit release. So, yeah, if you're into Sergeant Benton, then knock yourself out.
Yeah, they're hit and miss, those things, aren't they? Koch Media, isn't it, that have
that's right,
re-released a lot of these ones. I know people do pick them up because of their connection with Doctor Who, and even ones like this, a bit like I was saying earlier, they always have something which is quite interesting, even if it's not always that good. I seem to remember on the making of on the original, it was quite fun to watch John just messing about in between takes and and all that sort of stuff. So there's always something to enjoy on these things, even if perhaps the dramas themselves are not that good, if you like.
Yes.
So yeah. Right. Other news. Something I am very excited about. Robert Harrop. Me and Gary both love the Robert Harrop stuff. I've been sort of really looking forward to seeing what they're going to come out with this year, because I assumed we'd have some new figures on the way. And they have been a bit quiet of late, haven't they?
They have,
I was getting a bit worried. I was like, ooh. Anyway, they've finally announced, they've given us a list of planned figures. So we've only got the sculpt image for one so far, but they've given us the list of ones that they're planning to do, which includes the Second Doctor, Patrick Troughton, the Master, which is the one that we've got pictures of, which is the Deadly Assassin Master. So he's like the crispy skeleton master with the sash. He looks very good, actually.
Yes.
From the photo. Yep. So they've already got that one down. How do you say it? Hemivores? Hemivores?
Hemivores from the Curse of Fenric.
That's it.
Yep.
The one that I'm really excited about, Tetraps.
Yay.
They're going to be doing Tetraps. I'll be buying that for sure. Here's one for you, Gary. Alpha Centauri.
Come on.
Doing an Alpha Centauri. I'll get that as well, actually.
Yes.
Draconian. That'll be good.
Yep.
Axons. Demon. That'll be the devil guy, won't it?
Yes.
I assume, because I got a bit excited. I was thinking that meant Bok when I first. I would love them to do Bok, but no, Demon, which is good. And finally, they're going to do K9.
K9,
which would be great to see how they do K9. So, for me, there's quite a lot on there that I'm really, really excited about, and I'm not going to miss out on these like I have the other ones. I don't care if my credit card blows up in the process of being used. I am not missing out on some of these. So. For me, Gary, Tetrap, Alpha Centauri, K9, and Hemivores, probably. Yes. What about you?
Yes, I'm excited. I think so. The Master looks quite good. That's the one that's just been completed.
Does look good as well, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So that will be up for sale, I imagine, pretty soon. The next one that's nearing sort of the initial sculpt that's going to be done is Alpha Centauri.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. I'm not getting excited about Patrick Troughton because, as we know, unfortunately, with the Robert Harrop stuff, the monsters look fantastic, but the actors, like they do a David Tennant one and they do a
Fourth Doctor and Third Doctor, don't they?
And they
don't look right.
No, they're not great at face sculpts, but they are, above and beyond, some of the best in terms of monsters and all that stuff. So, so I'm not getting too excited about Troughton unless it turns out to be, they've upped their game in that respect. But similar to you, the Hemivores, Tetraps, and Alpha Centauri, and K9 for me.
Yeah, really looking forward to the K9 one. That'll be good.
Yeah.
So yeah, looking forward to see some more sculpts. I'm really pleased that the next one that we'll probably get to see is Alpha Centauri, because it says in brackets nearing sculptural completion. So we should get some images of him soon.
Yeah, that'd be
which should be great. But this Master one they've got looks good. And they've set up a new Facebook page as well, which presumably is going to be where they're going to be posting the pictures of any new sculpts they get coming out. So I should be keeping a very keen eye on that. Yeah. I just hope they're not too expensive, because they're normally fairly reasonable, I would say, Robert Harrop stuff. I mean, it's not cheap, but I always feel that they're, for what you get, I always feel they're quite good for the money, if that makes sense. And they're never normally cheap, but I don't think I think they're quite reasonable for the quality of the actual product. So, because they're all hand painted, aren't they?
They are. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to some of these. Yeah.
And that was a good point, actually. They have a Facebook page currently, but they've sort of ditched that now and they've set up a new one. Well, I don't know if they've ditched it completely, but certainly for these newer figures, they've got a new page. So make sure you find the correct page. And you'll know it's the current Facebook page because it have pictures on of the new Master figure.
Yeah.
Yes. So Robert Harrop, get into that.
Definitely.
That's going to do for news and merch.
We
are now going to crack on with our review of the Second Doctor story. Adam, or should I call you Quark?
Quark.
What are we reviewing this week?
Well, let's take a trip to the planet of dead, shall we? Because that sounds exciting. It is, of course, the Second Doctor story, The Dominators.
You still feeling tired, Doctor?
Just a little bit weary, Jamie.
You need a good rest, Doctor.
Yes, we all do a nice holiday.
Well, where do you say this place was again?
The Island of Death.
3 people have been killed, a spacecraft has landed, and there are robots on that island.
Dominators do not seek assistance.
They're callous, without pity.
What we need, we take.
We require our people as slaves.
Do not defy or question the Dominator, obey!
There are bloodthirsty lot, these Dominators, aren't they?
Destroy! Destroy!
Well, we'll just have to stop them then.
Primitives will not go unpunished.
Nowhere on the entire planet is safe.
Now you'll see what happens when the orders of a Dominator are disobeyed.
Oh my word!
Fuck! Destroy!
God, it's a great trailer, that.
It's a good one. The DVD
It makes
trailer.
it sound really exciting.
It does, yeah. Right, the Dominators came to us in August of 1968, and it was a 5-parter. It was written by Marvin Haseman and Henry Lincoln under the sort of joint pseudonym of Norman Ashby, and it was directed by Morris Barry.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why they initially didn't put their names to it, which we'll come on to a bit later. Yes, and it's a second Doctor story, so Troughton with Jamie and Zoe as the TARDIS team. And the plot is relatively simple. The Doctor and companions land on an island which is supposedly full of deadly radiation due to previous sort of nuclear or atomic weapon testing. And the island is visited now and then by students who study that kind of stuff. However, prior to them landing, these 2 very ominous-looking characters known as the Dominators land, soak up all the radiation to use it as energy or fuel. And then we have this very, very, what feels like a very, very long story of the Dominators trying to get their ship sorted out whilst sort of analysing the inhabitants, quote-unquote, of the island, turning them into slaves and so on. And the Doctor and mostly Jamie trying to figure out what their deal is, how to escape, how to defeat them. And then we also have walking suitcases known as the Quarks, which is a very interesting design for Who. So that's briefly it. Yeah, what do you reckon on this one, mate?
Well, it's a 5-parter. It should have been a 6-parter, but they realised they hadn't got enough material to make it last for 6 parts.
You do surprise me.
I don't think they really had enough material to make it last for 5 parts, to be honest. I think episode 1 and episode 5 are definitely the best. Mm-hmm. They're the most watchable because there's stuff going on. But golly, the episodes in between, they really feel long. I mean, I kept looking at the clock constantly through this, and I genuinely was like, at one point, I was thinking, God, this episode must be getting near the end. I think it was episode 3 or 4. Mm-hmm. I was thinking, come on, it must be getting near the end now. And I looked at the time counter, and it was on 11 minutes. And I was like, it can't be. I was genuinely like that for a lot of this story. I was like, no way, still got another 14 minutes of this. So it's hard work, I think, this one. There are some nice bits in it. Troughton, as usual, is lovely in it. I wouldn't say he's on his top form, but he's good in it. But it's a series opener, isn't it? This is the first story in Pat's second series, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Series 6. Yep.
Series 6, yeah. So yeah, it's a bit laborious for what it is. There is a fairly all right story in there somewhere, but it's just not enough to take us through. And golly, if it had been a 6-parter, I think it would have really, really suffered because nothing really happens in between. But it starts off good enough. I mean, I love the beginning where they arrive and Troughton gets his deck chair out and all that stuff. And I thought, yeah, this is classic Second Doctor stuff. And the TARDIS team are great. I love Zoe and Jamie and the Doctor together. So it all starts off good. It all ends good when we get a bit of action going on towards the end. But the stuff in the middle, whew, oh boy, I was checking that phone a lot. I have to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But so that's my feelings on it. What about you, Mick?
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same. I think this is a common opinion for the Dominators. Overall, I don't mind it. I think it's quite a good story. I do enjoy quite a few aspects of it. It's not a terrible watch, but it's not bad. You don't watch it and think, oh wow, this is particularly terrible. It's just the pacing is very slow on this one, and the story. I don't think it needs to be 5 parts either. I think this could be dare I say it, this could be a 3-parter. I would say.
Yeah.
Let alone 4, but it does, and I'm really glad they dropped the 6th the episode, because there literally just isn't enough story here to fill out. I would say 5 episodes. I think it should have been a 4.
Four. I think they could have just about got away with 4. I think. I'm pleased that they dropped the 6 for 2 reasons. One, for that very reason you just said, because it would have really dragged it out, and secondly, because it then gave us an extra episode of the Mind Robber, which because they had to improvise very quickly to fill that this extra episode that they'd suddenly got to make with no budget. I think they came up with a really interesting first episode of the Mind Robber, and the Mind Robber is a story I really like. So I'm glad for that they decided to cut it to 5 episodes so that we got an extra episode of the Mind Robber, because I think that certainly works a lot better. I think it's just a shame. I think you said it. It's not terrible, this story. It's definitely watchable, and there's just about enough going on in there to keep you going. It's not one of those where it's not unwatchable. I think it's just because so much of Pat's stuff is missing. I think they even say this on the making of. They're like, there's so much great stuff missing from Pat's era, but they've got the whole blimmin' lot of this, which I'm not complaining about. I wouldn't want it to be missing by any means, but yeah, it's not one of Pat's best, unfortunately. Yeah.
And there was a few people that viewed, even when they were making it at the time, that's what their feelings were as well. So I think the guy you're talking about is Mervyn Haseman.
Yes.
And he was like, it's just such a shame that we've lost so much of Pat's stuff. But, I think he says it with a sense of irony that we've got all of the Dominators. Which, and the guy that played Rago, I think it was Ronald Allen, he also said, I just didn't feel, it wasn't my best work, and it wasn't great. And same thing for whoever was the production designer as well, the guy that designed all of the sets and props and everything. He said, I just didn't like it at the time. I felt like I couldn't do my best work. I wasn't happy with it. And so there is that vibe, that even when they were making it, it just didn't feel like. And for me, the biggest thing for me is that I never really saw Troughton shine in this one.
No, he doesn't.
He's good. Don't get me wrong. He is good. But I never really get that feeling, like especially with even the next story, The Mind Robber. He's amazing in that.
Yeah.
But for this one, I feel like he's always at sort of 80%.
Yep. Absolutely.
Like
agree.
he's there, and you're almost waiting for that scene where you're gonna see him just, give you that brilliance that that is there on some of the other stories. But he just doesn't seem to get there. So he's good, but that's the one thing that maybe would have brought it out of a lower score up to a higher one, is if we had a bit more of Troughton doing his typical Troughton thing, but it just seems a bit subdued in this.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. It's that thing of that moment when he shines. I think the only sort of glimmer of that we really get is the beginning when they come out the TARDIS and he's, the 3 of them are in full flow, and that's fun. That's a nice little scene. But it's weird because you can see that he's trying, but you just, even from watching his performance, just get the feeling his heart is not in it. I think we might have said that about Davison recently as well. I forget which story it was.
Yeah, but I get that. Time Flight. Yeah,
was it Time Flight? Yeah. I get that same feeling with this, that Pat's trying to do his thing, but just really is thinking, his heart's not in it. He's still good in it, but I agree with you. He feels like he's sort of running on about 80% in this, and I can't blame him. Why did the guys take their name off it as well, the 2 writers then? So what was that, anything to do with, is it because they didn't finish it on time or something, or
they didn't like it?
They didn't like it
because they put an initial draft together, and then it just got changed and chopped and all the rest of it, and they were like, well, we're not going to put our names to this because it's they felt at the time it was dreadful,
And it'd been changed too much from their original idea, I think, as well, or something.
That's right, yeah. So I think they had, well, in their opinion, they had a pretty good story. And then they worked up a draft of a script and so on. But then whoever it was, I'm assuming, I think the director had a bit of a hand in it as well, Maurice Barry.
Yeah.
I think he changed a few things as well. And they're very not fond of his direction either.
No.
And it just got chopped and changed. And they were like, well, no, we're not going to have our names on it because this is our careers you're talking about. We're not going to have it sort of ruined. Not ruined, but, we're not going to have a sort of little black mark on, a fairly decent career. So they came up with the joint pseudonym Norman Ashby, which apparently is the name of their mother-in-laws or father-in-laws or something like that.
That's something like that. Yeah, that's right.
So
you just mentioned the director there. Actually, I mean that's the thing. They do also say, don't they, in the making of that, very nice guy, Maurice Barry, but not a particularly. They're not very complimentary about his directing skills, and perhaps that's why the performances, especially from Pat, feel a bit weak. Because, mate, the director's got to keep it going, and maybe they just felt like, this is just not happening.
Yeah.
Because I think they do actually say that, don't they? Maurice Barry, lovely guy, but direction wasn't on top form on this one.
That kind of makes sense as well, with the sort of very slowness and the almost bland sort of visual aspect of the story. Because,
it's very bland.
Yeah, and I think it was, again, Ronald Allen, who plays one of the Dominators, Rago. He said that same thing, very nice guy, but just never really spoke out and, never had any original ideas around the story.
That's it, no flair.
Yeah, I mean, I think when they were writing the scripts and going through it, he was like, well, we should probably change that. That could do with a tweak. But when it came to actually filming them, both on set and out on location, he was just going through the motions, like, this is the script, point the camera there, action, thanks, cut, right, next one. He didn't, some directors, some of the better directors from, that era, people like Dave Maloney, and some other people, they were very much like, no, I'm not having this, let's go. Because I think TV production back then was you had limited time and limited opportunity to get it right because time was against you, especially on set, like we've spoken about before with the BBC being very unionised. And if you hadn't got it all done by, 5:00 or 5:30?
No, it's 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock at night.
10 o'clock,
lights are off.
There was no argument. It was like, no, we're not going to do it. The lights are going off. We're going home. If you haven't got it, too bad. So, but there are directors that still put their foot down and said, no, we can, I'm not just going to point the camera. We're going to have like a sweeping angle. We're going to do this. And I think, that makes sense to me now after I watched that, and various people had said he just didn't have much in the way of sort of outgoingness with directing people. You can see that the direction throughout is relatively flat.
Very flat. I mean, you saying about that, I mean, I'm thinking, if you think of somebody like Douglas Camfield, he's constantly trying to find a new way to film something, low shots, looking up. And he was one of those that obviously was very enthusiastic to try stuff, even when time was against him. And it really shows, in terms of that. So it just does feel very, very flat, doesn't it? And it's funny because we got these location scenes as well in the good old quarry. And then we cut to studio, and I almost feel like, well, it's great that they actually made the effort to go out on location, but I'm surprised because they don't really utilize it much. It's just shots of them wandering around it and running. And obviously Troughton didn't go out to location because that person that's supposed to be the doctor, whenever they cut to the location is definitely not Troughton. In fact, there's one bit when we first see him where he's holding his lapels like William Hartnell.
That's right.
As if he's not watched the show for years. He said, Pat's not coming out on location, so we're not going to see you from the front. Just bung this wig on, bung this jacket on, and just walk out there with Fraser, will you? And he's walking out there holding his lapels. He doesn't even know who the doctor is, I don't think. But yeah, it's very clearly not Pat, isn't it? Even though we only get quick shots of him.
Yeah,
you can tell it's not Pat on location. No. It's somebody else. Yeah, an extra.
Yeah, they had two different locations as well, didn't they? They had a quarry and then they had another quarry, a more.
Yeah, they went to two quarries at the opposite ends of the UK. So they went to one in Buckinghamshire and one in Maidstone, wasn't it?
Something like that.
It amazes me that they go all the way out to these locations for that. Yeah.
Well, I think one was quite, as you would expect, quite rocky stuff, and the other one I think was more beachy, more fine.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it's difficult, isn't it, to kind of get into it when you've got sort of fairly bland direction. The pacing's very slow. And also another thing that has happened with a couple of Troughton stories is that some of them do feel quite repetitive.
Oh, yeah.
Where you have a really cool opening to the story. So episode 1 is really good, and you have a really good sort of finale. So the last episode in whatever story is good. But the middle sections always seem to be either very cat and mousey, where the Doctor and typically Jamie has been captured, then they escape, then they get captured again, then they escape, and then they do go and do, it's quite a theme, unfortunately, for Troughton's story, where the middle bit is a bit filler.
Yeah.
And I think this one is a great example of that. Unfortunately, the War Games suffers a little bit of that.
But somehow it's still entertaining, isn't it? I always find that amazing. War Games is 10 parts, and yeah, there is a lot of escape and capture, but it manages to be fresh somehow.
Exactly. So the story, like the accompanying story and the other characters, because there's quite a few in the War Games, there's quite a bit more going on. You can forgive it a bit more. Not this our right to forgive it, but you can sort of go with it a bit more. But for this one, because there's nothing else going on, you do have so.
And also, you said about the large cast, because War Games got a massive cast, but this has got a large cast, doesn't it? And I kept thinking all the way through, God, every week, really bad with names. I really can't tell you, apart from maybe a couple, anybody's name in this. I kept thinking all the way through. I was really trying to concentrate, thinking, I know when we come to record a review of this, you're going to say, what did you think of Kando, for example? And I'll be like, which one was he? Because I haven't got a clue who they were at all. And I did try to learn the names this time, but I've made a note of the ones which I thought were good or bad, so I'll be able to recognise them. But there is a lot of people in this, isn't there? And I couldn't tell you who half of them were. I'll be honest with you. Even Brian Cant's in it. Do you remember Brian Cant from good old classic school programs in our day? He's in it for a little while. I didn't recognise him. It's only because it said in the thing. But yeah, I really lost track of people's names and stuff in this. There's just one or two that stuck out for me for either good or bad reasons, which we'll come on to when we do the cast.
Yeah, it's not. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about story, and then we'll get on to characters. Right. So it does have a sort of ominous sort of undertone, this story about radiation, and I think it's a little bit of a dig, really, against sort of humans developing weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah,
because it is a lot about atomic weapons and nuclear fallout and stuff like that, and it does sort of throw a little dig at us as people, like, why the need to create such horrific weapons, because it creates all this harm and fallout and stuff, and they just do it in a slightly different way, don't they? So they sort of replicate what we've done in various sort of throughout history when we've created these terrible weapons. They've sort of replicated that, but just on a different planet, essentially. So this sort of isolated remote island, the people of Dulkis. I mean, that's the first few letters of the location. It's a telling name. So the people of Dulkis chose this remote island to sort of test their nuclear weapons, and as a result, the radiation is so high that nobody can go there anymore. So it's only for the Dominators craft that absorbs all the radiation that they can go there. And that's something that we obviously see a lot throughout Who. There's often, especially as we get into some later Doctors like Pertwee's era and Tom Baker's era, where a lot of their stories are very politically driven. And I think this one is kind of the same thing, but it's got more of a sort of overarching message to it, isn't it? It's like,
It's not a bad premise either, because I quite like the fact that Dulkis, I can't even say without falling asleep, I quite like the fact that they're a very peaceful race and all that, and then they get these blimmin' Dominators, so the absolute opposite. So that's good, but they don't really sort of utilise that much. It's kind of mentioned But,
So the overarching message is good. It's basically saying that, you know, atomic and nuclear weapons and stuff are bad. You know, you shouldn't do that. And look at the Dulcans. Is that right? The Dulcans? Or the Dulcistians or whatever. You know, they've evolved into a very peaceful race. So there's no need for weapons anymore. So one of the little, I think it's the scientific shacks or whatever on the island, they find this laser gun that's apparently never used anymore. It's just there as part of a museum and all that stuff. So they've moved away from violence and war and all that stuff. So it does have quite a cool sort of message and that stuff. And they do play on it quite well because it does creep up in the story frequently throughout.
Yeah.
And it's always good when they do that, because while Doctor Who is great sometimes at just, you know, buggering off into space and dealing with aliens and all that stuff, sometimes you do have I guess as a responsibility as a writer for television, you do have, I don't know if responsibility is the right word, but, you know, you do want to sort of reflect your, you know, a good message, especially because for kids' TV, because back in the day, Doctor Who was very still marketed as a children's program.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? So
yeah,
that part of it's pretty good.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think it's, especially with the second Doctor, he's very good when it comes to putting across little messages like that, you know, which are important. I always think of that. Which story is it? Is it the where he says, you know, people spend all their time making beautiful things just for people to come along and smash them up, and it's just the way he delivers it, and you know, he gets that message across in 2 lines, and it's, you know, it's something that sticks with you, I think. So it is good to have that. Yeah, and like I said, it does add to the story. There is a good little story in there. It's just it is a little story. It's just not a big enough story for 5 episodes. But yeah, the premise is good.
It is. Yes.
Yeah.
How did you feel about the? So we spoke briefly about, if you look at this from a very, very wide angle, the Dominators are the baddies, and the Dulcans, I'm sure it's the Dulcans.
It is, yeah.
Dulcians, whatever. They're the goodies, essentially. But we do have a little rift, though, that's very apparent early on between the Dominators, don't we? So is the other one called Toba? Is it Rago and Toba?
I think so, yeah.
So they really don't like each other, do they? So I thought that was a really clever aspect of the story, because, yes, if you look at it, if you lean back and look at it, overall, it is, you know, good versus bad. Dominators are bad, Dulcans are good, and it's about trying to defeat the baddies. You know, that's from a child's perspective, you know. But they do throw in that nice little, very sort of almost confrontational scenes between Rago and Toba. So you have, in sort of hierarchy, you have Rago, don't you, who's the navigator. And then it seems to me like the other guy, Toba, he seems to be a level down.
Yeah, and also, but the friction is as well that is Rago. He's the one that's a bit more trigger happy, isn't he? It was just
Toba.
Ready to
Toba.
Oh, is it?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure now. I thought it was the other way around, but it could be. But yeah, one of them's a bit more trigger happy, isn't he? He's ready to just shoot anybody that comes near, and the other one's like, no, don't do that. We need them to help. Yeah, you know, it's more manpower, and that's when they start doing those silly tests, isn't it? Like when they capture the Doctor and Jamie.
Yeah.
And they start doing these sort of
the intelligence tests.
Yeah.
So I know. So that's exactly that. I thought that was a good part of the story, because it does flesh out those characters a little bit more. So you do have that friction there, and it is Toba. Yeah, he's the one that sort of knocks about with a couple of quarks, and he's happy just to shout "destroy, destroy," and Toba Rago's like, no, because they're on low power. We need them to help. If you just use up all the power, destroying everything, we're going to be screwed. So,
who is in those costumes? Who is in those quark costumes?
Kids, wasn't it?
Was it kids?
Kids, yeah.
I suppose it must be, yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's one bit where one of them gets blown up, and there's just 2 little feet left smoking on the on the quarry, and I was like, who was in there? Yeah, I suppose it would be. They are small, aren't they? It must be kids, yeah.
Yeah, that happens a few times with the Quarks, actually, where, because you know they fashion those little grenades out of something.
Yeah,
I can't remember what they're made of now, and they throw them over when they're on the hills in the quarry. They throw them down, And yeah, it's like almost a cartoony thing, isn't it? Where it's just smoke coming out of the boots at the bottom. It looks so funny.
Things with the Quarks is I can't help but feel sorry for them. They're supposed to be this deadly,
I know,
don't mess with the Quarks. They're like they really go to these elaborate ways of trying to destroy them or get past them. And I'm thinking, you just need to push it over. They look far too cuddly, and their little arms as well. They sort of these little arms that they have that come out. They're not very. I don't know. They're not very well designed, I wouldn't say. And I couldn't stop thinking of the suitcase thing because you'd mentioned it. They look like a suitcase.
Well, I can understand their design from like a very menial, like little service bot thing. Yeah, like if you could imagine just one of them, and it was in maybe the whole story like 2 or 3 times, you just saw it in the background, like tinkering with a machine. You can understand it, but to have like them as the main, not the main characters, but the main sort of threat, it does seem a bit strange. And there was one scene that had me absolutely cracking up laughing with the Quark. It's a bit where Joe and some of the other Dalkians had been enslaved. And they were basically just shifting boulders from one side of their driveway to the other, basically, or taking boulders from inside and out. And the acting skills, bless them, are not that great because
very heavy, those rocks.
You can tell they're like polystyrene, and they're trying their best to make it look like they're really heavy. There's a bit where one of them collapses, and he drops the boulder, quote unquote, and then there's a Quark that turns around, and as he walks off set, he's kicking the boulder with his feet, and you can hear it as polystyrene sort of scraping along the ground as he's walking off. And it's little scenes like that in Classic Who that are just so funny. And there's nothing they can do about it because it's all filmed in one go. The audio is filmed. You can't isolate that little bit of audio easily anyway. So you've just got to accept it. You
just got to carry on.
Yeah,
it's a bit like Fraser when that one falls out the door, because if you watch it with the commentary with the production subtitles, it will tell you which bit it is, and you can hear it go, and you can see Fraser's just for a second sort of looks as if, should I carry on? You can just see it in his face of like, oh, and then him and Pat just finish the scene, and it's like probably another extra 30 seconds to get the scene done. But you can, if you hear the crash and you just see Fraser just for a split second think, are we stopping? No. And they just carry on. Just get on with it. And like you said, that's what I love about Classic Who. Leave it in. We love all that stuff.
Just leave it in, yeah. And there was quite a few moments like that where things would get knocked and bumped. And
there's loads of stuff. There's loads of I noticed the blimmin' microphone shadow is all over the shop in the story. It comes across it. Yeah, it's in it loads. But yeah, there are quite a few little bits like this. I think there's a bit where I don't know. There was a couple of things I noticed in this, like with the gun and stuff, where things are just going wrong, but they just carry on. But just going back to the Quark design, though, even though they are pretty rubbish because they were designed to be the new toy, like they were going to be the new Daleks, they hoped, and of course that never happened. No. But I do like the spiky head design. I will say that. When we get a close up of the head, and it's got this really weird sort of silver mesh panel all around, isn't it? I quite like that. That's quite cool. But yeah, overall they're just a bit sweet. They're too cute to be threatening.
They're okay, but let's be honest, they are rubbish.
They are rubbish.
I mean, they're quite handy when they're firing lasers. They can destroy an entire building and stuff. They are quite handy to have around, but overall, they're quite rubbish. And I would imagine that when they were working on Star Wars, when it's been like almost 9 years later, you could tell that one of the droids in Star Wars was very much like this, just without the spiky head. So the Gonk.
Is it that the dark blue thing robot, the sort of box on legs?
Yes, it looks pretty much the same as this, but just a bit bigger.
Yeah, I never thought of that.
It's got the same sort of panels almost at the front, and it hops around on these little feet, and it's the one that goes gonk.
Yeah, no, I like that droid.
Yeah. It's basically a Quark just without the spiky head.
It is, but by having this design of having their arms sort of crossed, and at the front, it makes him look sort of angry, doesn't it? It's the body language is terrible. They're constantly stood. I'm sure people know what I'm talking about. But they're constantly stood with their arms crossed, like I'm doing now, looking really cross, as if they're having a really bad day. And do not mess with a Quark. Yeah. So, Quark design, cute but not scary.
Not scary at all.
And yeah, for what they're meant to be, quite rubbish.
Yes. The voices were done quite well for back in the day. A lady called Sheila Grant, she recorded her lines as the Quarks really slowly, and she had to take her voice down really low and record really slowly, and then they just sped it up.
I'm not sure how I feel about the Quark voices. I don't really know what voice they need. I kept thinking this because I don't think I like the Quark voice, if I'm honest. I find it a bit silly.
I don't, but it does make up for it in a very, very comedic and rude way. Because for most of the story, when you hear the Quarks sort of screaming or shouting something, it sounds like they're saying the F word repeatedly.
Does it? I hadn't noticed that.
Oh, come on, you must have. Well, actually, that happens with two people, because the Quarks, when they're shouting things, it sounds like the F word. And also the actor, Kenneth Ives, who plays Toba, the other Dominator, whenever he's shouting for the Quarks, or he's shouting Quark, it sounds like he's saying the F word as well.
Quark. Oh yeah, I'm never going to watch it in the same way again.
Honestly, mate, it's so funny because it's one of those things that once you hear it, you can't unhear it.
Yeah.
So I think this is maybe the third time I've seen this one, and every time I watch it, I cannot take them seriously because I feel like they're just yelling the F word all the time.
Especially looking so cross with their arms crossed like that as well.
Exactly.
Oh, that's brilliant. I'm never going to hear that same again. Yeah. Actually, and also Cully in one scene calls them Quarks. He gets the name wrong, doesn't he, on location? But again, they obviously didn't go back and refilm it. But he actually says, "Look out for the Quarks." I was like, "Who's the Quarks?" Yeah.
I'll tell you what, the pressure of getting everything right in one go for Classic Who.
Yeah.
You don't have that now. They can have 50 bloody takes, can't they?
That's it.
Yeah. No luxury.
No. But that is funny, though. I'll have to look out for that. I don't know when I'll watch this again. It won't be for a while, but I will look out for that. And I'll never hear it the same again.
Sonic Screwdriver.
Yes.
Just want to mention that. It does pop up. It's a little bit more useful in this one.
It almost turns into like a little mini ray gun.
It does.
It's quite powerful in this.
Yeah, I think it had been. Is this the third time is it the third time we've seen it, or the fourth?
Second, I think.
Oh, just the second. Yeah,
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and now it's got because it is a bit of a Swiss Army knife in this one, which modern Doctor Who has sort of fallen foul of a few times, but it does help him literally tunnel through rock.
It was a bit silly, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean that was however.
I mean, in the last story, it was just undoing a screw, and everyone was like, "Wow!" And in this one, it disintegrates a whole wall.
Yeah, it's cool though that they brought the Sonic into it a little bit more, because if they'd have left it just very tucked away in a pocket and just once in a blue moon, maybe it wouldn't have the significance it does today. But
I did wake up at that point, I must admit, because I was so glad to see it, because I was really starting to drift at this point. And then he's like, "Oh, the Sonic Screwdriver." I was like, "Oh, yes, forgot that was in it." Yeah.
Yeah. And that's however funny that last scene is, it's so funny. So in the story, towards the end, the Dominators are essentially going to destroy the island. So I think it's in midway through episode 4, or at the start of 5, they start drilling really deep down into the island so they can drop this bomb and, have done with it. And so the Doctor tunnels through underneath, so, he can basically see up the shaft that they've drilled. Mm-hmm. And it's so funny where they drop the bomb and the Doctor catches it at the bottom and he's like, "Oh!" and then you see the extra, which is supposed to be Troughton, legging across the beach in this very funny clown-like manner because he's holding this very powerful bomb, and he just tucks it in by the Quark, doesn't he?
Yeah, he just literally just rolls it in the ship, doesn't he?
Yeah, he goes, there you go.
Yeah. That's a nice moment. That's Pat bringing the story to life in it when he's going, oh no, like doing his second Doctor stuff. That's brilliant, that bit.
He does have a couple of scenes where he does that classic, oh no, oh. This is great, Troughton.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some other characters.
Yeah, so, there are a lot in this, aren't there?
So there's two main groups, isn't there? Apart from the Doctor and so on, and the Dominators, we have the students that have just landed on the island to do their research, and that consists of a very old person, who I can't remember the name, a young person, a young guy who's very camp, and a young lady, who I think at the time Fraser Hines very, very much liked.
I think any lady at the time, Fraser Hines very much likes. Yeah. He's a lad, isn't he?
He was a lad, yeah. And so we have those guys. And one of the things that's very cool, and we do see a lot in Who actually, is this real shouting at the TV moments with stubborn, ignorant characters.
Oh, I put here pompous idiots in brackets. They're so pompous, yeah.
So where you have essentially you have Zoe who's saying, and the Doctor saying, look, this is the situation. Bad people must tell someone. And they're just very like, no, what are you talking about?
Can't be.
And I'm sitting there saying, you stupid old beep. So you do have that, come on, just sort it out. But then again, we wouldn't have much story, because at that point in episode 1, if he did just say, oh crap, okay, gets on the blower, sorts it out, that would be the end of it.
Yeah.
So we can't really resolve the story as easy as that. But so those guys, they were okay. The old guy, he's the one that collapses with the boulder, and the Quark sort of plays keepy uppy on the way out. But they were okay, I suppose. They were just a bit.
I just put they were dull, and the one that I've highlighted out was he's sort of like the leader guy or something, or the most important, or the most pompous. Senix, you know this guy?
Yeah, that rings
Director
a bell.
Senix.
Yeah.
He's sort of like, seems to be the one I think he's the one you're saying is like, no, we can't have any of that. He's rubbish. Walter Fitzgerald. I mean, he just seems to be, no offense, but he seems to be on his last legs. He's got no gusto to his performance at all, and he completely gets his lines wrong in the first scene.
Oh yeah, he does.
You know the guy I mean? It's like he's got the sweat back. He's like, can't possibly be happening here, and all that. And it's just no go to him at all. I thought he was particularly rubbish.
I'm not sure that's director Senix.
Oh well, whoever. You might be. I might be getting mixed up. But the one that I've written down.
Oh, is it?
I kept waiting. I kept waiting for him to say his name so I could highlight him. So it is definitely Senix I'm on about.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, but I mean there are a few like him, and they're all equally as bad. It's just that he particularly stood out as being a bit rubbish in his performance, if you like. But the only one, I mean, out of all the cast, the only one that has any slight saving grace for me is Arthur Cox, who plays Cully.
Oh, Cully, right.
Because at least he's giving something in his performance, whereas I feel like the others have just wandered on set, said their lines, and walked off set. Mm-hmm. But Cully, to be fair to him, Arthur Cox does seem to be the only one that's trying to do something and is even remotely interested. I probably wouldn't care because I've got no affiliation with him at all. Whereas with Cully, I quite liked him. And, when he sprains his ankle going up the cliff or whatever he does, I was like, oh, poor Cully. So he's the only one that stands out to me in the whole supporting cast, to be honest with you. Apart from our regulars, obviously. But, yeah, the rest I thought were as dull as dishwater. And I do feel sorry for them in terms of their costumes as well, because
let's talk about them. Bloody hell.
Yeah, that can't have helped, can it? I mean, I think again, Arthur Cox says in the making of, doesn't he? When he walked in and saw what he was going to be wearing, he was like, "You having a laugh?" It's just like it looks like it's a dress made out of a curtain.
Well, they essentially are.
Yeah, it is awful. I do feel sorry for them.
Yes, I think
having
the costume.
to try and act in them.
Yeah, the costume designers, they sometimes on Classic Who, they do tend to. So when you've got like an alien planet, and they try and envision in their head, like, what would they wear? You know, what would this race of people wear? They often just go quite feminine. So you have, like, when we reviewed, what was it, The Curse of Peladon? Who was the king?
Oh, it was David Troughton, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's basically got hot pants on, some knee-high boots, and a
big belt with a buckle.
Woman's blouse.
Yeah.
You just think, why? And it's the same with this. You know, all the guys are wearing, effectively dresses, and it's quite bizarre. I mean, there's no right or wrong for it. Obviously, if they're an alien race on an alien planet, you know, you can't be right or wrong. It's just like, wow. You know,
would you call it a sort of is it like a toga? It's like a toga dress wrapped in a curtain, and it's just weird, isn't it?
It definitely has shades of like Roman times, because when the survey people, when they get enslaved to move polystyrene boulders around, they don't have the dress bit, the curtainy bit, do they? They have like sandals and togas.
Falling off. Yeah.
So they look quite Roman-y.
But what about the Dominators costumes? I mean, they're on the other end of the scale. They are bizarre, aren't they? With these big, I mean, they're better. I'll give them that. They're better than the curtains, but they've got this like massive hunchback shoulders, haven't they? They look really, really uncomfortable to wear.
They do. They seem like, it almost seems like, you know, let's find some obscure materials and some obscure stuff, and we'll just bung it on, and that will be the alien sorted. But they do. I mean, it does give them big stature. I mean, I think
it does make them stand out. I wouldn't say they're particularly bad in design, because they do. No. They are eye-catching, whereas the other costumes, I just thought, oh dear. Yeah. But at least the Dominators look interesting. Yeah. With their big shoulder pads.
Yeah, and I think Ronald Allen and Kenneth Ives were really tall anyway. They were quite tall actors. So when you put the massive shoulder pads on as well, quickly, we have the council members back in Dulcis, wherever the capital is. Can't remember what it's called now. Those guys, very argumentative, very British, very no.
Yeah.
They were okay. One of them has they only have a few lines really, but not too bad, I suppose, for what they were needed for.
Yeah, they're all right.
All right. What's the name of the city then? They do go to it a couple of times because they...
Oh, in that weird capsule thing?
Yeah, you know,
that weird space rocket or whatever it is.
The little Flash Gordon
rocket. That's exactly what I wrote down. I was going to say that, yeah. I've put here, look, model shots are very Flash Gordon.
They are,
But a lot of our listeners might not know what we mean, but I knew you'd know, because they used to be, what, was it a 50s show, 60s?
It was a 50s show. Yeah.
Yeah, black and white Flash Gordon. I think it must have been American. Certainly, that's how I remember it. I mean, it used to have loads of these little model shots that are very, very similar, I would say, to the model shots we get in this. And I will say this, I quite like them, even though they look terrible. They've got a sort of nostalgic charm, I think, the model shots in this. Like the UFO is the flying saucer or whatever is very... very sort of 50s, 60s.
It is,
but I quite like it. Yeah,
it does. It has shades of, especially the little capsule that takes them to and from the island.
Yeah,
it's almost like if I gave my son a washing up liquid bottle and a couple of bits and said, right, make a rocket ship. You know, it's that very typical.
That's what you'd get.
Rocket ship kiddie kind of design, but it is very Flash Gordon though, for sure.
Very, yeah.
Let's talk about the Dominators themselves. So those two guys, I really liked their performances, not overall throughout the entire story, but I really liked the interaction between the two of them. When they have their little spats and they're arguing, you know, and the top guy, Rago, he's like always telling him to shut up.
Yeah.
Every time he's like mid-sentence, he's like, silence. And, you know, you'll do as I say. And the other guy, you can see he's absolutely seething inside. He's like, and then they have this not a proper fight, but he's like, it's not uncommon for superiors to be replaced because they lose vision. And so, like we said earlier, you've got a tug of war between the guy wanting to just blow the crap out of everything and the other guy who's like, nope, we must stay on mission. We need the power. Ignore these puny, unintelligent beings. Let's just crack on. So I really like their performances when they're fighting and they've got that friction.
They're actually, they are pretty decent in it, actually. To be fair to them, they do give a good performance. So especially Ronald Allen as Rhaego, because he's the guy from Crossroads, isn't he? As soon as he walks on, I was like, doom, 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 doom. I'm sure he is. I'm sure I recognise him. Well, nor did I, of course, but I'm sure I recognised him from Crossroads. Again, most of our listeners won't even know what that is, but I did think those two were quite good. In terms of, if anything, maybe they should have beefed up their part and given them a bit more to do, because they might have helped save the 5 parts, if you know what I mean. If we'd had a bit more of them, because they do spend a lot of time just going back and forth to the spaceship and having a bit of an argument now and again, and doing their silly tests and that. So, but they are quite good, I think, actually. These two guys, these two actors, they do give a good performance, I think.
They are. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier about, especially with the Troughton stories, there is a lot of repetitiveness.
Oh, a lot
going on. So we do have this same argument between these two.
Yeah.
It happens maybe 4 or 5 times over the 5 parts. So when they're having that argument, it's very deja vu. It's like, we saw this argument 20 minutes ago, I'm pretty sure.
That's right. Yeah.
So there is that. But they are good. And I like the way they played them as well. Especially Rhaego, he never looks them in the eye. You noticed that very well, maybe a few times. But he's very he's very stiff, he walks around there's no fluidity to how he moves or anything. Maybe that's
quite cold
with the huge shoulder pads, but he's very staring off into space when he's delivering lines and stuff. So I thought they were quite good.
They were good, yeah, because I said earlier the supporting cast were pretty bad, but I exclude those two. I did think they were quite good in this, actually.
Yeah. Jamie and Zoe.
I really liked Jamie in this. I know he doesn't get an awful lot to do, but I thought Fraser Hines was quite, considering what he says in the making of, where he really didn't think it was a particularly good script. I thought he was good in it. I liked him in this. As I said, he doesn't get a lot to do. Poor old Wendy, I think, suffers slightly worse because she doesn't really get anything to do, does she? She spends most of her time with, is it Cully she's with? Or who's she with?
She's with Cully, yeah.
She sort of gets separated from the Doctor and Jamie for a lot of the story. And she doesn't get a lot to do. Her poor old dress is falling apart by the end of episode 3. I don't know if you noticed. She's suddenly got a great big safety pin holding it together at one point. I think from when the set, there's a cliffhanger where the set sort of falls on her, and I think by the next episode they're holding it together with pins. So there's nothing wrong with Wendy Padbury in this. She's perfectly fine, but she just doesn't get a lot to do. But I thought Jamie was fun, and him and Pat together are always great. So even though the intelligence scene is silly, they're quite fun together, like when they jump off the console, and there's a bit of banter between the two of them, as we always get. So that's nice. But yeah, I thought, if anything, I thought Fraser Hines was quite good in this story.
Yes, I agree. Same
in his performance.
Yeah, same thoughts for me. I think Zoe doesn't have a great deal to do, but old Jamie, he's still quite brash, still in people's faces, ready for a fight, and it's down to... I just like the character. Yeah, I like the character, Jamie McCrimmon, and he mentions the old redcoats and that again at one point, doesn't he, or something? And I don't know, I just found him fun when he was on screen in this. I thought he was good. And interestingly, actually, talking about the character of Jamie, it's a shame that they didn't finish up the series with... So the two guys that wrote it, if you watch the special features, they had this really cool story explained where they go back to Jamie's homeland at his time, and they were going to, because at this point, I'm pretty sure at this point Fraser Hines was talking about leaving the show and going off, so they wanted his departure story to be a real proper Jamie story, and they were going to go to Scotland properly and do all that, but that got canned.
Yeah, it's a shame.
That would have been really good for him to have a decent send-off story.
They were going to bring it full circle, weren't they? And it was all to do with the fallout, wasn't it? With the rights to the Quarks, and it all kicked off between the writers and the BBC at one point. And I think, I can't remember how or why the ins and outs of it, but basically they were told they would never write for the BBC again. Is that right?
That's pretty much it, yeah. They,
so it never happened?
The two guys who were doing because of all this fallout between trademarks and who was allowed to use what, and I think the BBC just had enough of all the court cases that were coming up, trademark infringement, and all that stuff. They just basically said, no, we're just going to, you guys can just bugger off.
Do your own thing. Yeah.
So that's a shame, because they would have, I think they had the story worked out already.
Sounds like it.
What they were going to do. So, yes. And before we move on to the Doctor, I just want to mention another really funny scene with Cully, where he collapses under the weight of the
boulder,
the cardboard bit of set. Do you remember that bit?
Oh, no, that. Oh, God, yeah.
Where Jamie's looking through the gap in the wall. Yeah. And all you can hear is Cully like...
He's trying to hold it on him, isn't he? And it just falls off. He's like, oh.
It's literally a bit... If you can imagine a piece of cardboard that's maybe like a couple of cereal boxes that have been glued, like cut into shape and glued together. And bless him, he's trying his hardest to make it look like it's made of steel, and the structure's on top of him. But it's just flapping around, and you got to love it.
Yeah, I noticed that bit as well. Yeah, I think as it says in the script, he's supposed to be like trapped under it, and it literally falls off him within seconds, doesn't it? He's like, oh.
Yeah, it's flapping around. Bless him. And Mr. Troughton.
Troughton, yes.
We have a strange one to review him in this, because he's good. Don't get me wrong. He's always good as the Doctor. I've got no complaints with him, but I think, as I mentioned at the beginning, he never seems to get going.
No, he doesn't.
What is it? Do you sort of agree with that?
No, I do. I think you summed it up perfectly when you said about it firing on 80%. And it is strange because it's the first story of his second series. So you think he'd be well in the swing of things now, and sort of you'd have thought at the start of his series he'd be very on top of his game. But I don't think it's Troughton's fault, I will have to say, because he's still really, really nice. His performance is still really nice in it, and still very good. And there are these odd moments of brilliance from Troughton, but he's not firing on all cylinders quite. But I put it more down to the direction and the script, and I think he is trying very hard, but it's just not quite his best in this. I have to agree.
Yeah, I mean, I blame the director. I mean, I don't mean to speak ill of the dead, but I do blame the director for this one. I think Maurice Barry just didn't bring the best out of certain characters, and notably Troughton, which is a real shame, because if you look back to the Moon Base and Tomb of the Cybermen, they were actually quite well directed, especially Tomb of the Cybermen. I quite like the direction for that. So you can tell that he's a very able director, and he's, he can get a good performance out of people. But for some reason, on this particular story, it's very flat. And not just with Troughton, but some of the other, especially the supporting cast scenes as well. They're very, very laborious to watch through, because there's just no energy. There's no, it's hard to explain, but unfortunately, the person where you really want to shine and to sort of carry the story along a little bit, if it's a bit dull, is the Doctor. And I just don't think that Barry got the most out of Troughton with this one. It's just a shame, because it could have really done with him really firing 100% and really entertaining. And even if you think, the story's, I'm struggling to get through it, at least when Troughton's on the screen, you're like, this more than makes up for it. But
because there's quite a bit where he's together with Jamie, and normally the two of them really spark off each other, and it's surprising we don't get a bit more from the two of them together in terms of the performance. Like, there's a bit where they're in that capsule and Troughton's on his head at one point with wires sticking out. Do you remember? There's some scenes that I think could have been really good, but for whatever reason, they almost feel like they're about the 5th or 8th take, but they obviously aren't. It's just that the energy isn't there in some of those scenes that we normally get. Yeah, I don't know. I think they both struggled a bit on this story, to be fair, but they're still good. I mean, the best bit of Troughton for me is the start of the story, when they come out of the TARDIS and they think they're having a holiday. That's where we get to see the best of Troughton, and possibly the end bit that you mentioned when he's got the bomb and he's like, oh no, doing all that, and throwing the bomb in the ship and all that. That's really funny, by the way, when the bomb just rolls towards them. They turn around and it's like, oh my God, how did that get in here? And the ship blows up. That's really funny. But Troughton, yeah, good, but not his best, not his finest hour, maybe.
No, not his finest. Yeah. I don't want to speak too unfondly of Morris Barry either, because he had a very small part in Blake 7, so I don't want to get told off by you.
Right.
Don't want to get in Adam's bad books there. Anything you want to mention before we crack on with the music? They didn't have a proper composer on board, did they? So they enlisted the powers of the Radiophonic Workshop. So the soundtrack is very special effecty. It's just a series of special effects noises, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's funny actually, because the only note that I haven't mentioned is about a special effect, which is the TARDIS. When it lands, it makes a really funny. I was thinking, what's wrong with that? It sounds like they've got the wrong sound effect. It sounds like a real sluggish landing sound is probably the only way I can describe it. It's as if there's something wrong with the TARDIS. And I just thought that was odd, because I was thinking, well, what was the story before? Is there something wrong with the TARDIS?
No,
and I don't think there is, because it's the first story in the series. So I think it's just a case of they put the wrong sound effect or a different sound effect or something. Did you notice it? It sort of goes, it's like it's struggling to land.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I thought the same. It's definitely they've either tried something new and people have gone, no, that's not working, or it's an error, because it's definitely we don't hear it before or after this story, so it's definitely a bit
it
weird.
Sounds like something wrong with the TARDIS. Yeah, but that's the only other note I've got, really. I mean, I didn't notice any music or that in it particularly. Nothing stood out to me.
No,
or sound effects really. Didn't really notice them.
Yeah. I think the best sound effect would be when they discover the laser weapon in the museum. We have this really loud, typical sort of 60s sci-fi sound, and that's it, really.
Yeah.
The rest of it's quite minimal. Yeah. Right, scores, my good friend. I think it's you to go first.
It is me this week. I'm going to go very middle of the road. I'm sort of stuck between a 4 and a 5, really. I'll go for 5. I don't think it's terrible, so I'll go middle. I'll go 5. 5 out of 10.
Okay. Cool. I will go with a 4.5.
Oh, right. I thought you might have gone lower. Yeah, I thought you were going to come in with like a 3 or something for a minute there.
Yes, I will go for 4.5 because I do feel like there is a decent story in there.
Yeah.
It's just the pacing and the directions just really lets it down massively.
Yep.
And also, I think it would have been a 5, but I just needed Troughton to be a bit more into it. If Troughton was, really, really into it, then this may have been a 5 or a 6.
There is I think the cliffhanger to the ending of episode 4, I think it is, Troughton has to hold this really serious face for what feels like forever.
Oh, yeah.
Did you notice that?
Yeah.
It zooms in on it, and they don't do it in the recap. Well, you see it for they really cut it short in the recap. But in the ending, did you notice that the camera zooms in, and I kept thinking, when are they going to cut? Because he's just stood there looking really concerned for for ages. And I must just quickly mention, I loved we get the reveal of the Quarks is saved, isn't it? Right up until it's like the big reveal of episode 1, and I thought, oh, what a disappointment.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be this massive reveal, isn't it? They're kept hidden all the way through episode 1. You're thinking, oh, what's this? You can, if you imagine watching this for the first time, you've never seen the Quarks, but they wouldn't have done back in the day. And we finally get the big reveal at the end of episode 1 of the Quarks. I was like, oh. And
it's like, yeah,
oh dear.
It's them. That's what they look like. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think even audiences back in the day would have been too impressed with that big reveal, if I'm honest, but there we go.
There we go. What did our listeners think? Over on Twitter, we had a few tweets flying around between Crinoid Podcast and Dave Probert. Dave says, I quite like the Dominators, and then he puts ducks. So ducking down. And then Crinoid says, I've never seen why it gets so much flack. And then he says, it's not the best of Troughton, but it isn't terrible. At worst, it's dull in places.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that, guys. Yep. It's not bad, it's just a bit dull in certain places. Let's do an audio review. We had one this week. This is from Loopy Loo.
Command accepted. I thought I hadn't seen this one, but some of it seems familiar. Perhaps I started watching it and got bored. I saw it through this time, though. I love that the male Dulcians are wearing dresses. Yay! So nothing much happens in the first part. It starts to get slightly exciting in part 2 for about 2 minutes. Third part in, and the Doctor is still not really doing anything. Part 4, and what exactly has the Doctor been doing? Nothing! Halfway through the last part, and the Doctor actually starts to take some action after Jamie is the one who comes up with a plan. And it was a very silly ending, in my opinion. Honestly, after watching this, I'm not sure I like the second Doctor at all. I will give him a chance and watch more of his stuff at some point. To think this was going to be a 6-part story before they edited it down, blimey, I don't think I would have survived. Yeah, I'm afraid I'm going to give this a 3.5 out of 10.
Oh dear.
Oh dear, Lou, not a fan. Actually, one thing I would say then, if she's going to watch another, give the second Doctor another chance, maybe watch the next story, The Mind Robber, because I think Pat's fantastic in that.
Yes.
Totally on form, considering all the budget restraints of having to make an episode that wasn't planned with no set. So you've probably seen it, Lou, but watch the next story, which is The Mind Robber, if you haven't seen it, because he's wonderful in that. And it's a good one as well. So
it's really good, The Mind Robber.
I'd recommend that. It might not be Pat's best story, but yeah, just as it's the next story that follows on from this one with all the lava and all that. Yeah, watch that one. He's good in that.
Yes. Over on Facebook, Adam Pink says, The Dominators is a rather average episode. Not too bad, but not great either. Troughton is excellent as always, as well as Fraser Hines and Wendy Padbury. 5.5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Adam. Nick, my good friend Nick Gill says, love all Troughton stories and can watch them over and over again, but all of the existing complete Troughton stories in the archives, I would consign this to the furnace if I meant that we could have a better story in the archives instead. Though which that would be a much bigger debate. It's not bad, it's not great either. The best thing about it, this is the complete and it's in the archives, and consequently that's also the worst thing too. Winky face. So kind of, I know what you mean there, Nick. Jeff Waddle says, probably only 2 or 3 episodes worth of a story. Even Troughton and Jamie aren't enough to save this one. They have their moments, but it's so bland they might as well have called the planet Dull instead of Dulcus. The inhabitants of the planet are so wet you couldn't care less about them, and it seems as if the same cliffhanger is all the time. He gives it a 3 out of 10.
The cliffhangers are weak, aren't they? I didn't even know what happened at the end of episode 3, I think it was. Do you know there's a bit where a quark just shoots at a wall and then it ends? And I was like, what? I didn't even know what was going on in one of the cliffhangers.
Yeah. Kevin Mullen. Just when I thought the Crotons was the most pedestrian episode, along comes the Dominators with their incredibly camp shoulder pads. Lots of needless shouting and very little action from the titular Dominators. They should be sued under the Trades Description Act. The Quarks are equally useless, and it's a mystery why they turned up time and time again in the comics. Troughton is great, but it's obvious that he was exhausted by the workload. 3 out of 10.
Yeah.
Danny Brown saw this recently, and I knew it would be dull, but the first couple of episodes were good, but after that I couldn't get into it. The story's good, but average direction and silly monsters make it a slow romp. 6 out of 10.
I agree.
Joe Sweeney, this is an underrated story from the Troughton era. There wasn't a lot going on. Most of the time I found the pacing slow. Dominators and Quarks are boring to watch, but what keeps me entertained on a bad episode like this is the Doctor, and Troughton is great as always, even though he has not been given a good story. Jamie and Zoe are good, however, the ending did leave a bit of a good cliffhanger. Overall, okay episode, but not something I would watch again. 4 out of 10.
Right.
So the ending is good, actually, the very last bit. So it's quite comical where they realise that they need to scarper quite quickly because the island is going nuts.
It's erupting, isn't it?
Yeah, so they need to scarper.
Yeah.
So they're sort of basking in the glory, and then it's like, well, no, we need to get out of here. Sammy Satine says, one of my favourite TARDIS trios, Trout and Jamie and Zoe, arrive on the planet hoping to have a holiday. Alas, like every other time the Doctor tries to go on holiday, end up in trouble. The planet is occupied by peaceful people and unfortunately being somewhat overtaken by some bullies known as the Dominators. I really like them. Definitely not one of the best Second Doctor's episodes. Zoe was great. Jamie was great. The second Doctor was great as per usual. I grew to like Cully, the bloke that Zoe got put in the travel pod with, and the old guy who was teaching the students. Aside from them, everything else was pretty abysmal. Just one question: why are the Quarks so previous to the Dominators? Previous. I never completely understood that. So it's 4 out of 10.
Yeah, 4 out of 10. Yeah, I agree.
Last few on here, Charlie Turner. It's been ages since I commented on here. So
he normally comments on mine, I think is what he means. Yeah.
So the Dominators. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. It's boring. I'd give it a 3 out of 10. The only things I consider good are the Doctor, Jamie and Zoe, which are my favourite TARDIS duo of all time. He references the Doctor and Jamie.
Yeah.
Right, Maria. I always get this wrong, I'm sure. Maria Kalatichou. She put a huge review on here, so I can't read the whole lot out. But she says, I came to this story during my Troughton watch a few weeks ago, and I can't say that it's without any redeeming features, but realising that the script came from the same team, Mervyn Haseman and Harry Lincoln, who wrote The Abominable Snowman in A Web of Fear, two absolutely top-notch stories in Series 5, it's a strange entry compared to some of the other stories for Troughton's last series. It's so different in tone and development to what they had done previously. Watching the special features on the DVD, it did seem as if it was a troubled writing process, which is a shame. She goes on to say, good bits of Doctor using the Sonic as a blowtorch and the Doctor and Jamie playing It's Being Stupid with Rago with the intelligence test. I didn't mind at all the ongoing power struggle argument. It was fairly entertaining. A larger-than-life Ronald Allen and Rago, whose delicious deep tones and his apprentice Toba. And good to see some great threat from the Quarks using the molecular ray to pin the Tholtians to the wall.
Yeah.
She also liked Cully's relationship with Zoe. Things that she doesn't like, the story takes a while to get going. Only started to get into it in episode 3 when the pace picked up a bit. If this story was meant to be a commentary of unilateralism or pacifism, the council played their roles really well, and it seemed literally horizontal, relaxing in their chairs. It felt like an absence of momentum in those scenes, which is very true. The premise that the presence of only 2 Dominators on the planet looks set to destroy the whole thing lacked credibility, especially when the first shot of the story is showing a fleet of ships in space. Why didn't they just call for backup?
Yeah, true.
There are bits of story I like, mainly the regulars, but it's not on par with classic Series 5, so 5.5.
5.5, yeah. About middle of the road.
Yeah, Joseph Howarth. It's very boring. If I could then, I would have made my review nothing but me saying boring over and over again, as there's nothing to say about the Dominators. The Dolkins, barring Cully, are absolute wimps who dress up in ballerina tutus and are so pathetic. They'd probably need their mummies to help cross the road without fear for lives. The Quarks are silly with their chipmunk voices and they look like they're made of Lego. The Dominators, well, it's rather difficult to take them seriously when they have shoulder pads that would give MC Hammer a run for his money. He goes on to say, the only good thing about this one is the TARDIS crew, and at least the Doctor and Jamie have some funny moments in the story, but it isn't enough to make me watch it again. 4 out of 10.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. And lastly, Zach Jenkins says, I remember loving the Quarks when I was younger. Troughton is brilliant as always. 6 out of 10.
6 out of 10. Okay.
You had a few on the Geeks handbag, right?
I had a couple on the old Geeks handbag, yeah. Mike, or is it Mick? I'm never sure, actually. You have to let me know. Mick Willis Best says, He just basically says he loves this story. So yeah, which is good because we've had very middle of the road comments so far, but Mick or Mike loves it. Patrick Sherwood says Dominators, well, it's not one of the best stories. I don't like it. He's going to give it a 5.5 out of 10. Callum Johnson, quite a slow story, could easily have been a 4-parter instead of a 5. However, the casts were pretty good, and he loves the design of the Quarks, so he gives it a 6.5 out of 10.
Oh, cool.
And finally, Jack Wilderspin says, found this one quite dull, to be honest. I love Troughton, and he gives a fantastic performance as always, but I felt the story slowed down often and found myself checking my watch throughout. The Quarks aren't that menacing, but the performances from the other cast members were great, but not the greatest stories of the 60s era. So Jack gives it a 5 out of 10.
5, okay.
A 5, yeah.
So I think mainly middle of the road.
It seems to be mostly, yeah. We had one there that loved it, but mostly middle of the road. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
So I probably wouldn't say it's a recommended Troughton watch, because it's not going to, especially if you're a new viewer.
I wouldn't, like when we say how much we love Troughton as the Doctor, if someone was to say to me, well, which story should I watch to get into Troughton? I definitely wouldn't recommend this one.
No.
But I don't think it's awful. I don't think it's absolutely unwatchable. I definitely think it's okay, but it's just not one I would reach for that often, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed. Next week, obviously, we're going back to modern era Doctor Who. We have got is it Eccleston? Yeah.
It is.
What are we going to do next week, buddy?
So yeah, it's about time. We haven't had a Ninth Doctor story for quite a while because obviously we've only got a few left to do. So we're trying to space them out a bit now. So the Ninth Doctor story we're doing next week will be The Empty Child, which is obviously a 2-parter. We've only got 2-parters left. So Empty Child, and then we'll do a classic the following week, and then we will do the second part, The Doctor Dances, the following week. So next week, Empty Child.
Very much looking forward to that one.
Yes.
Because I'll be honest, I haven't seen this 2-parter in a while.
Really?
Yeah, I had an Eccleston watch through. That was a few months back, though. And I remember, so The Empty Child next week. Look out for the Facebook post and Twitter and so on. We'd love to hear your views and thoughts on that one.
I'm really looking forward to seeing the Ninth Doctor, actually.
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
Right. Yep. And I think we're going to do there for 1:30.
All righty.
Thank you so much, guys, for sticking with us. I know it's been a quite longish show, I suppose, considering we're talking about the Dominators. Hope you haven't fallen asleep in much the same way that you did actually watching the Dominators.
The episode, yeah.
But it's been great talking through this Troughton story and some of the merch as well. If you're into John Levine and Sergeant Benton and all that unit spin-off stuff, then remember to pre-order the Wartime Chronicles from Amazon. And we're also really excited for the Robert Harrop stuff coming up.
I'm very excited about that. Very excited.
Figures coming up.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you all so much for sending in your thoughts and your feelings and reviews, etc. for the Dominators. It's always the best bit of the show when we hear what you guys think to our review stories and chatting through the community about our story. So next week, The Empty Child. Going to spend some time with the Ninth Doctor, Mr. Eccleston. So we really look forward to hearing your thoughts on that one. Head over to the website, www.bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk. You can listen to this episode again and all the previous shows on there. Plus you can link off to our social stuff. Do a search for us in iTunes. Just search for the Big Blue Box Podcast. And you can give us a subscribe so you never miss a show when it goes out on Fridays. And if you are an iTunes listener, if you could spare a minute to give us a review, that would also be fantastic.
Yeah, helps us out a lot, that does.
It does indeed. Remember to check out Adam's channel, The Geek's Handbag.
Yeah, have a look at it.
Have a look. So you just need to do a search on YouTube and Facebook for The Geek's Handbag. So many good videos on there. You will
Go
not
and
be
see my latest one
disappointed.
of me crying over the Titan figures I got.
Yeah. You can get lost watching Adam's videos. I honestly spend 45 minutes has gone by and I'm like, huh? Oh, I've watched a bunch of Geeks Handbag stuff.
Yeah. You must get a new one. Must start filming again. Soon. Just need something to review. Just need some more products to review. Yeah. I just must quickly say before the music runs out, that Wartime Chronicles is available from galaxy4.co.uk and it's a lot cheaper. It's $9.99 on there.
Right,
so if you are a Benton fan and you want it, get it from those guys. I've used them a lot and I tell you, they're really good, Galaxy 4. So yeah, it's cheaper and the service is good. So
nice one.
Get it from them.
So how much is that? $9.99.
$9.99 from them. Yeah.
Cool.
They got some other ones as well.
Let's do this in silence. My name's Gary.
Oh, has the music run out?
It's gone. Yeah.
Oh.
My name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
Oh, hold on. Let's end with this. Let's then end with at least a sound effect of some sort. Ready? My name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And remember.